In 2020, a local Athlone committee called the No. 1 Gun Battery Heritage Group began the long physical process of uncovering and preserving the last surviving gun battery of 8 that were originally built over 2 centuries ago in 1805 to defend against a possible invasion. Starting in 2020, they managed to cut back the dense vegetation and uncovered the battery.
So at that point, the site was very overgrown. You couldn't see any of the features of the site really at all, apart from the ditch around the front of the gun battery.
In 2021, they managed to dig out the ditch that fronted and defined the shape of the battery, but there the funding ended.
The big thing for us is financial resources, and unfortunately last year we weren't able to avail of any funding, and this year thanks to the Heritage Officer and the Historical Structures Fund and the Heritage Council, we were able to do the work that you see here on site.
In 2023, with the resumption of funding, the next phase was dependent on a map found in the British Library by members of the group.
I got on to the British Library to see would it be possible to get a copy of this plan, and they told me that not alone had they got that plan, but they also had a plan of batteries 2, 4, 5 and 6.
But this map actually showed us how the ground was formed inside the battery and gives an awful lot of detail, a good cross-section through the site. They really show us how this gun battery was laid out.
So the first job was to do something to preserve the deep ditch or moat that fronted the battery, the walls of which were precarious due to the original stone all being taken away in the past.
So it's essentially a sort of a battered wall, sort of at a slight angle, and has these sort of deep bonding stones that tie it back into the ground behind. And all of those bonding stones remained in place, or all of them, many of them, whereas the facing stone had all just been taken out. And there was only one section which was still complete. So we decided to replicate that over a wider area so that you could see what the wall looked like when it was complete. And when you look at it now, you can see the original stone that had survived and the new stone that was put in.
Then, on the upper part of the site, the overgrowth was once again to be cleared, but now with a map to guide, the team set out to see what they could find.
The remains were all basal remains, or the foundation remains of the structures. So we didn't get much upstanding features. What started to emerge, a path that actually went around the entire perimeter of the site, and then the gun placements 1 and 2 emerged, and then the guardhouse, which was the big mystery at the time. We weren't sure what size that might be, we weren't sure what it was constructed of, and then the boundary wall. Where we just found that wall there, it follows through to the gate over there, into the battery site, and then access to the guardhouse. So these features all just started to emerge beneath the soil. So we cleaned it back by hand and recorded and photographed it.
Before finishing up this year's work, plastic covered with gravel was laid over the site to preserve it from overgrowth. And this also made it easier for people to pick out the amazing details that had been found.
So far we have enclosed everything from this site here. And we've left that for maybe a future study, because that could be a really good community excavation or something like that. So we've left that for discovery in the future.
It sort of exceeded our expectations in that while we had the map, when we started to work on the back end of the site, we were pleasantly surprised to discover what we did discover. And from a maintenance point of view, what we have now discovered, we're going to be able to maintain without overgrowth.
We got a lovely cobblestone surface defining the entrance to the site. There's a lovely spudstone as well, which, you know, where you can see the hinges of a gate would have sat. That gave a really good idea of how the site worked and how people entered and exited the site, you know.
A modern drain in the middle of the site was probably put in by the new Irish Army, who began to use the site after 1922 as a training ground, and evidence of them and the older British presence was uncovered during the work, especially by the regular metal detector sweeps that were taken on each layer as they were uncovered, and those finds confirmed the history of use of the battery area.
The metal detection survey revealed sort of a period of time through the site. So we got musket balls, we got a mini ball as well, which is a later version, and then the Lee Enfield rifle bullets. So we have a full sort of typology of bullets from the site as well. So this is a cap badge from Óglaigh na hÉireann, and you can see the FF Fianna Fáil. And my favourite find from the site possibly is a Queen Victoria uniform button. The 1837 button would have represented the British forces on the site in the mid-18th century, before the site went out of use in the 1860s.
Looking at the progress to date, I mean, the whole site is now taking on a much more meaningful look. In the past, if you brought somebody up here, you were trying your damnedest to impress them and tell them what was here, but all they were seeing was a little bit of a hill and some stones and not really knowing what it was all about. I think now there's much greater opportunity to show people at first hand what it is, to explain it to them, and it's quite easily explained when you look at it on the ground now.
So we have then the guardhouse, which was just a brilliant surprise because there was speculation on the site. We have a very good read on the there was the parapet wall there, and there was a walkway along here. Then we have our dry ditch, then we have our gun emplacements, and then the slope down to the guardhouse then as well. It's in archaeology you don't get them very often. No. This is what you're going to find, so that's what we have.
We were in awe when we saw what was there, because you were looking at the original British Museum map, and then you were seeing that coming to life to say, oh yes, this relates to this part of the map and this relates to this part of the map. So you're actually seeing the physical side coming to life, and it's a long way from the first video of A Deafening Silence to where we are now.
What we want to do is to make the site as easy to interpret as possible. And I think the work that we did this year down there shows a visitor to the site what the form of that trench was, and what the scarp or scarp and counterscarp, what they looked like. But up here you get a very good sense from the platforms and from the guardhouse. But I think the wall around the edge, I think, is the next thing to address.
There is a curiosity. I mean, the site has been cordoned off now for a couple of years, and there is definitely a curiosity, and I get stopped on the street to know what is this number one battery about. And I think that, you know, bit by bit people will appreciate it more. And I think it's something that for school children, for adults, whoever wants, that there's history here to be learned, and easily learned.